All right. Well, nothing is working. Welcome to the new year.
Yeah.
Music's not working. Video was funny. We're just going to go into it this way then.
Sure, why
welcome
not?
to Holstered Gunz. Holstered Gunz is a movie podcast, an off-season movie podcast of the Smoking Guns podcast. Hey, we're getting closer and closer to football season. So if you're popping in right now and like, hey, maybe they're talking about football. Not yet.
Not yet, but
closer. We finally got a schedule for the Brahmas. It's not good. I recognize, we've always recognized, if you're here for football talk, you got just a little bit of it right here at the beginning, because I know Leo has some opinions on it. I do too. I recognize those people that want to like give the league a pass and want to be like, well, they're working against the Final Four and they've got this and they've got that. And I understand it. We just should be happy that we have football. And while I understand that sentiment, this is a crap schedule for San Antonio fans as far as the Brahmas go. Friday night games are no good. They don't do anything for us because we're tailgating kind of community. An 11 o'clock Sunday morning game, same thing. It's really, and there's only 4 games. Obviously, we already knew that going into last week when the schedule was brought out, but not really friendly, but it's coming. It'll be here soon. We'll be able to talk about San Antonio Brahmas football. Gunslingers are fan-friendly. They do have a solid schedule, and that's all ready. So we're going to get there soon, but for now, we're still talking about movies. We are today is 9 movies deep into a 10-movie project that we started at the beginning of the offseason. And Leo, I think this is my least favorite of the movies we've done. Not that it's a bad movie.
No.
I'm going to say a lot of things that sound like I do not like this movie. I picked it. This was one of my draft picks. I picked this movie, but it is probably the one that we've covered that I was A, least excited about going into the week, and B, have probably the least amount of things to say about it, but it's still worth talking about.
Sure. It's not a bad movie. I think it's a good movie. I just think there's not a lot of depth. So there's not a lot to analyze or talk about. It's a cool movie to just sit and, watch. If you've got time to burn and you kind of want to, you hadn't seen it in a while. And you'll enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it watching it this past week. But yeah, it's not at the level of some of the other films we've talked about for sure.
We are talking about 1989's Major League. Quick synopsis on it. I usually do this during the music. While the music's running, I didn't get to do that this time. The new owner of the Cleveland Indians puts together a purposely horrible team so they'll lose and she can move the team. But when a plot is uncovered, they start winning just to spite her. Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give them the heater. This is Major League. Major League was released in 1989. It is written and directed by David S. Ward, a huge Cleveland Indians fan who wrote this movie and created this movie because he's an Indians fan and thought it was the only way he would ever see the Indians win anything. I joked beforehand that maybe I need to write a Dallas Cowboys movie.
Yeah, maybe you should.
This movie stars Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Corbin Burnson, Renee Russo in her first movie, Wesley Snipes, which we'll talk a lot about, I'm sure, James Gammon, who I love, Dennis Haysbert, the President of the United States, at least if you're a 24 fan, Margaret Whitten, Bob Uecker, many, many more, but that's kind of the top of the list. It was made for $11 million. It brought in $49 million worldwide at the box office. Worldwide numbers, the same as domestic numbers. I guess people over in China don't want to go see a movie about Charlie Sheen playing baseball. Who knew? Runtime on the movie, 107 minutes. And is that too long? Like, it might be too long for this movie. 107 minutes might be a little lengthy.
I was surprised when I saw the runtime on it, actually, now that you mentioned that, because, yeah, I figured it would be, closer to an hour and a half. I was surprised to see how long the runtime was.
Yeah, they needed to cut this down, and I know where they needed to cut, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but they needed to cut this down to a cool 90 minutes. This needs about 15 minutes lopped off of it somewhere.
I'll bet we agree on what should be cut.
If you know me at all, you probably know exactly what I think should be cut out of this movie, and I bet we are in agreement. So let's talk about our first contact with this film. Leo, when did you first come in contact with Major League?
Cable TV. Cable TV as just a young, that came out in what year was it? Again, it was
1989.
89. Man, I was 13 years old.
So
yeah,
when
so
you
young
say
teenage.
cable TV, when you say cable TV, are you talking premium? Are you talking HBO Showtime? Or are you talking TBS?
No, I'm talking HBO Showtime.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because
I definitely saw it at home for the first time, but on I was probably HBO, to be honest.
Because this had a huge life on like TBS, TNT. They used to run it all the time. It is a very different movie on TBS than it is watching the movie actually. This is a hard R, and it's all language. Like there is no nudity. There's not really any sex, drinking, drugs. Except Charlie Sheen's in it, so there's actually probably all of those things behind the scenes. But it's all language. Like the language in this movie, I had forgotten how rough the language in this movie is. I was trying to pick a quote because I usually have a quote in my intro, and every quote I wanted to pick had an F-bomb in there somewhere, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. An incredibly quotable movie. Which is something that we say week after week, or time after time when we do this. We talk about how quotable these movies are. Hey, Lilies, we did have a great holiday. I talked to Leo a little bit about y'all's holiday. Sounds like you had a good time. Full house, full of people. That's fun. My first contact, Leo, with this particular movie, Major League, is Blockbuster. This was right in the heyday of Blockbuster, and my parents would go and rent movies every weekend and a game. They would rent movies, and I would get one Nintendo game. But we'd watch the movie, and Major League was just one of those that we rented at one point. And I sat down and watched with my parents, and I was hooked. I loved it. I thought it was really, really funny. As a 9 or 10-year-old, like this is right in the wheelhouse of like this is very funny to me and very quotable and all of those kind of things. And so it was just, and then constantly in contact with it through like TBS, TNT. But again, I have a very different memory of this movie than what it actually is at times, because I don't remember seeing the full, they cut out the owner, they do the life-size standee of the owner and they remove all the pieces of clothing. I don't remember actually seeing it fully exposed. I didn't think that ever happened. And so as I'm watching it this time, I'm like, whoa, I don't remember this. I don't remember that happening.
That's not fully. I was like, what, panties and pasties, right? I think is what it gets down to. But yeah, it's a quick scene. Yeah.
But yeah, TBS and TNT is probably where I contacted this movie the most. It's funny. It's a really funny movie. It's a great sports movie. It's probably the best intersection of like screwball comedy, although we'll talk about it in a few minutes. It never really feels like it wants to be a screwball comedy, but it won't go there. It wants to stay grounded, which I think hurts it in the long run. But it's funny. The reason I picked it is we had gone through our list. We had picked 8 movies. We had 2 left. This was my last option on our draft, and we had no true comedy, and we had no sports movies. And I was like, well, I'll get both of them with this movie. That's why this ended up on the list. It's not one of my 10 favorite movies. It's not one of the best movies of all time. I just felt like we needed to fill some slots, and we could do 2 of them with one movie here. What makes this film great? I use that word loosely. What makes this? Yeah, no, let's call it.
I don't know if it's great, but yeah.
What makes this film worth talking about? Let's say it that way.
I mean, it's just it's a feel good film. I mean, it's a true underdog story. A bunch of ragtag, put together roster that's really meant to do nothing and intended to lose and end up in last place, and they overcome some things, and that those challenges to kind of do what's supposed to be impossible. And so that's always nice. A nice feel good story where you can relate with the characters, and you can find them funny, and then you can see them succeed at the end. And I kind of like the whole thing at the end with Charlie Sheen, with Wild Thing, and Adorn, and what happens between him, and the whole thing with the wife. Although I still don't understand why she did that specific. I understand the want to get back at Dorn, but the way she did it and then tell him about it, like it was just trying to sabotage the whole thing, was curious to me. But to see them kind of go through that and then overcome that, because at the time it's like, yeah, this is something that bothers me, but there's this common goal, and there's this one thing right now, and that's all that matters. And that was cool, in my opinion, in a movie.
I do.
Not necessarily real life.
I think the Dorn's wife stuff is really muddy. Like, we get her. So one problem is she looks so different from scene to scene. She's laying in bed, and this is not like, it's true to life, but she's laying in bed. She's got glasses on. She's reading. She sees him being Roger Dorn on the TV. When he's got his arms around some girl, and he's like leaving the hotel with this woman. And so she assumes he's cheated on her. The next time you see her, she is dressed up, full makeup. She does not even look like the same person. It takes you a minute to go, I know what's going on here. And maybe that's on purpose, but it kind of muddies the water a little bit. It kind of felt like Ward just kind of needed some extra something. Obviously, I never thought about it before. I never worked with it before, but Dorn and Charlie Sheen's character Vaughn hate each other through the whole movie. I never really thought about it until this time watching it through, but they are not. So her motivation of finding the one person that he hates the most, you've got to think he's been at home griping about this kid, this veg-head kid on the team. James Palmer, hey, how are you doing, sir? And that's got to be like her motivation. It's like, what can I do to hurt him the most? And that is to, sleep with this kid that he absolutely hates. It's a fun little movie. I think some of the ancillary performances are my favorite part of this movie. And the first one I will mention, and the guy that I think makes this movie for me, is Bob Uecker.
Absolutely.
Bob Uecker is incredible in this movie and in Major League 2. He is so funny. He is so on it. He's this is right in his wheelhouse. He was the Milwaukee Brewers play-by-play guy for years, for 20 years or something like that, before he even did this movie. And then he had made a transition into acting. He was on Mr. Belvedere and had done some movies. Ward approached him not knowing, apparently, that he had been a play-by-play guy. He just wanted Bob Uecker to do this part. And Uecker was like, yeah, which is funny because they filmed the whole thing in Milwaukee anyway. So it's Bob Uecker's, stomping grounds. But Bob Uecker is so very funny in this.
Yeah. And apparently most of it was ad-lib too. Like he told Bob, just you be Doyle, I think is the character's name.
Yeah, Harry Doyle.
You be Harry Doyle and just go with it. And yeah, that makes it the much more much more entertaining knowing that fact.
Probably the most famous line from this movie is his, just a bit outside. And some of those kind of things. I love as a podcaster for a sports team, I love the moment right about the middle of the movie when Euchre comes on and he's doing TP Talk, which is a radio show, but it's very podcasty. And he said, welcome to TP Talk. In case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, you haven't. The Indians have won a few, and I love that. It makes me laugh every time I watch it. His delivery is excellent. His delivery on everything is excellent. When I think Hayes gets thrown out at first base, checking his shoe. It's the first time he gets on base early in the season, and he's checking his shoe because the Yankees first baseman tells him his shoe's untied, and he looks down and he gets tagged out. And Euchre just says, Hayes tagged out at first, picked off at first. I think we got hosed on that call. And he just throws it in. Very Homer kind of, announcer, which is all baseball announcers are and should be, like they work for the team. And but Bob Uecker absolutely makes this movie, and I love that they don't try to drag him into other parts. He is just in game, in season. They don't even bring him. He's not even there in spring training. That voice doesn't exist until we get to the regular season, and he stills the show. He's great. His color guy is really, really funny in that he is so soft-spoken and just doesn't say anything.
He's just there. Yeah. I love the one comment where he says they don't say he's the best color man in all of sports for no reason.
The end of the game when he can't find the sponsor and he's like, forget it. The end of another game when he says, we got one run, we got one GD run. His color guy covers the mic and says, you can't say that on the air. And he goes, that's okay. Nobody's listening. Just great. Great performance. Bob Uecker's funny. Always funny. He was funny on Carson. He used to go on Carson all the time, and he was just a funny guy. Another performance, again, it's not one of the main people. It's one of these ancillary performances. James Gammon as Lou Brown. Quick story for you, Leo. I got my very first job in sports media, and I use that term very loosely here. Writing for a sports blog that was called Pile of List. It does not exist anymore. It is gone. It is wiped off the face of the earth. But we would draft different sports topics and have fun and just kind of make fun of them, comedy, sports sort of stuff. And one of the first assignments I ever got on that blog was we drafted a sports movie coaching Hall of Fame. And we got 2 picks apiece. One of mine was Harry Hogg from Days of Thunder. It's a movie I really, really love. It's not a good movie, but it's a movie I really love. And so I wanted to talk about Robert Duvall's character in Days of Thunder. And the second one was Lou Brown from Major League 2. I love this character. I love this performance. I think he is exactly what he should be. Pitch perfect. There is nothing I would change or improve about this performance at all. The gruff voice and the optimism in his team. When he sits down, like, this is not a movie that has heart. We can talk about comedies that have heart. There's a lot of them out there. This is not a movie that has much heart in it. But there is one probably moment of true, like, wow, that's really cool, heartfelt kind of moment in the movie. And it's when he's sitting in the visitor's office and the general manager comes in to tell him the whole plan. And before he starts talking to him, he says, some of these old guys are playing back to form and some of these young guys are really, really good. There's 2 or 3 potential all-stars in there. We're a contender right now. And Charlie says, you actually believe that, don't you? I love his optimism for a gruff, old, mean sort of manager. I think James Gammon just is incredible in this movie. He's great. I'd give him an Oscar for this movie. No, I wouldn't do that. But I think he's incredible. I think he makes the movie in a lot of ways.
I agree. The character is very well done. What I really like about his performance is, he's funny in a dry sort of way,
Yes.
but he's also very, very much a sports authority figure. Like, I know he's not the coach, he's the manager, whatever, but it's equivalent to like the head coach, but he's very much that role and that persona that you see from a lot of people in that type of that type of career. I think he kind of nails it. So, but
I
he's
love
funny
them.
at the same time.
I love the moment when they call him at the beginning of the movie and ask him if he wants to manage. He's been managing minor leagues for years. He works at a tire shop, and they call him and they say, "Hey, we want you to manage the Indians." He goes, "I don't know. I'm gonna have to call you back. I got a guy on the other line about some white
walls." Yeah, yeah.
James Gammon is great. I don't want to take away from the other guys, the main sort of guys in this movie. Tom Berenger does a great job. This might be the movie I like Tom Berenger in the most, which is not fair. He's done a lot of really great things, but I just feel like this character, Jake Taylor, I really like the character of Jake Taylor a lot because he's barely hanging on, and it's clear. He doesn't belong in the major leagues anymore. The only reason he gets the shot is he fits a very specific set of criteria for the owner. He is a name, but he's no good anymore. And so it's just enough for her to have him on the roster. I like his character a lot. Charlie Sheen and Wesley Snipes, two guys that were very young in Hollywood at the time. Charlie Sheen had been around Hollywood all his life, of course. They're good. They're okay. I think if I recast any of this movie, it would probably be them. One of them I really want to recast. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But they're okay. Like, they didn't do anything wrong. I just think that the Euchre and Gammon performances really carry a lot of this movie.
Yeah, I won't disagree. I think they carry. It's a comedy, right? So those characters are more funny and likable than the. There's not a whole lot that's funny about Willie Mays Hayes, and then the Wild Thing character. I mean, there's some comedy elements there, but no, I definitely agree. If you could replace those guys with someone else, and it wouldn't suffer as much as if you replaced Berenger and Gammon.
We do need to talk a little bit about Corbin Burnson, who is the only touchstone my children have for this movie, because as I'm watching it, they walk in and they go, "Hey, that's his dad on Psych," which is true. Corbin Burnson had a long running character on Psych as Jim Roday's father, and I understand that's their touchstone. I don't like him in this movie, but you're not supposed to. I don't think you're supposed to like Roger Dorn at all.
Yeah,
I think he's supposed to be just one step below the ultimate antagonist, which is the owner, which is Rachel Phelps. I just don't think you're supposed to like him, and that's okay. I'm looking for Chelsea Ross, who has a big career in sports movies. He is Eddie Harris, the old pitcher. Eddie Harris, the one that has Crisco and Vagisil and rubs snot on the ball. I love that moment where he's like,
one day you will too.
One day you will too. Chelsea Ross was a head coach in Rudy. He's the bad guy in Hoosiers. He's the pitcher in this movie. Like, this guy made his career off of being like these one-off parts in sports movies. Like, he made a whole career out of that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Wow.
This movie, Leo, when we talk about what makes this movie great or rewatchable or whatever you want to call it, I don't think it is. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's rewatchable. I think the last half hour is great. The final game with the Yankees is great. The rest of it, I mean, it's okay. And we need it to get to that final game. Like, we need the setup to get there. But this movie really starts flying in that final game. It is one of the best endings of any sports movie anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it up against any. Remember the Titans, Rudy? I'll put it up against any of those if you just give me the last 30 minutes of this movie. It's really, really great. I truly believe that. One thing that I love about the ending of this movie, every character in the movie that we've been following gets a hero moment. Serrano gets his home run. Ricky gets the big strikeout. Taylor gets the bunt that he has to leg out. Hayes in the base running for the slide for like, they take the time with that final game and give every one of them their heroic moment to win the division. And it's really cool. Like, all of those moments are so fun, to the point that the first one happens, which is Serrano's home run. And I'm like, I thought some other stuff happened here. I can't believe this is the big heroic, the big crazy heroic moment. It's not the only one, but it feels like more. It's enough to carry the movie. Like, that's enough for it to be the end of the movie. And like I say, there's 4 of those. Well, 3, because one of them is all in one. The Taylor bunt and the base running from Hayes is all sort of one thing. I love the final game. I think it's really well done. I think it's really well shot. It is mostly accurate as far as baseball. There is a lineup issue. I was doing some reading on this or listening to something on this, and they talked about how the lineup doesn't actually make sense. You have to be so incredibly inside baseball to notice that the lineup is juiced a little bit. I'm not worried about that. Let's talk a little bit about the final game. Which of those moments, Ricky's strikeout at the end of or at the top of the 9th, whatever that is, top of the 9th inning, when he comes in for that one strikeout with the bases loaded. It's another one of those, like, you could end the movie on that. You could have that moment be the winning moment of the movie, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. It is really, really incredible.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, you're right. There's like each of these players gets their big moment. You know, Serrano with the home run, and then the bunt and the steal. I think, if you're from a sports perspective and you're asking like what is the most of those things, what is the most what's the word I'm looking for? I guess what is the most impressive feat? I would have to say the Willie Mays Hayes. Like, if you're going to give anybody a MVP for that game, it has to be him, because he stole second, third, and home to win the game. But it's like, it doesn't happen without the bunt, and it doesn't happen without the strikeout, and it doesn't happen without Serrano's home run. And it's like, for any sports guy and anyone who's a big fan of team sports and not individual sports, I mean, that's, I think, what makes that whole ending sequence and that whole, what you're talking about, these last 30 minutes where they do this game, or 20 minutes, whatever it is, it really punches home the true aspect of a team game and needing everyone to kind of come through big in order to get the prize. So that's what's, I think, is really cool about that. And then the other thing that they touch on that I'm not sure if you mentioned, that I think makes it great, at least that ending sequence, is the celebration of the fans. And, there's people that talk about like bandwagoner fans, and those are looked at, as a fan base, those are looked at in a bad way. Like, it's a bad connotation to be known as a bandwagoner, but the reality of sports is people follow winners. And so I kind of like that they don't follow that stigma. And it's just like the acceptance of this is sports. When you have a loser, when you have a team that's not going to win, there's only going to be the select, hardcore that are there. They have the empty stands at the beginning. And then as more fans come and see how they're winning and they're enjoying it, it actually becomes something very meaningful to those people. They show the people at the end in the bar, and there's, you get the sense of that there's people that normally wouldn't speak to each other or want to communicate with each other, and they're hugging each other, because they kind of stop and pause and look at each other and like, oh, who cares? And they're hugging and celebrating. And the people in the stands and the guys in front of the TP, the ones with the drums, and how that group kind of grows, and the whole Wild Thing song entrance, and how it's a big, event as he's taking the mound, and you just see this big show up of the fans itself. And that is real. Like, none of that, nothing about all of that is made up or fake or fantastically unrealistic. That is real and a part of sports. And I like how they kind of leaned into that.
So it's funny. My next thing on here is in the final game, the crowd and the Wild Thing moment is listed on here. And the reason I think it's so impressive is, you're right. That's real. It really feels like that moment. We've all been, anybody that's a sports fan has been in the stadium or in the arena when it feels like something big is happening. And the crowd is part of it. The crowd is kind of grabbed on it, and there's almost this frenzy that is built up. And this little screwball comedy movie captures it better than any other movie I've ever seen, of the fans that are just so excited that, Vaughn is taking the field. I mean, they're in a 2-2 game in the 9th inning with the bases loaded for the other team. And they're singing and dancing, and, the individual people that they pick out and show you, 20,000 extras go into making that moment. This is a moment you're never going to see again. This is all done with computer graphics and AI now. You're never going to get real people, 20,000 real people to do crowd stuff for a sports movie again. That's never going to happen again. And this movie just captures that moment when something special is happening in a way that I don't think anything else does. The music is there, but it's diegetic. It's playing over the stadium. It's not a forced emotional thing of score behind the music that's not diegetic. It's diegetic and happening in the moment. It is really well done. There are a couple of moments in this movie where I'm like, this is more movie making than this movie needs. And this is one of those things where it just captures things so well and so perfectly. That it almost becomes out of place in this movie. It's like, hey, this is a screwball comedy. We should be getting
the rest.
We should be getting the crowd from basketball here or something. And we're getting this incredible frenzied sort of crowd that is excited about their team winning their first pennant in 3 decades, 4 decades, whatever it's supposed to be.
Yeah, long time.
Another one of those moments that feels like it belongs in a better movie. I'm just going to be honest with you. I feel like some of these moments just feel like they belong in a better movie. There is a shot, you'll remember it, at the end of spring training, that is from the back of the locker through the locker as Vaughn opens up his locker, and you get the out of focus red tag.
Yep.
There are 20 ways to shoot that and get the point across. This way they shoot it is so well done. Like I say, it almost feels like it belongs in a better movie. Not this movie is terrible, but it just feels like it's better. And what kills me about it is those kind of things don't happen anywhere else. I'm going to talk in a moment about an opportunity they had to do a similar sort of big movie making sort of shot that they don't do. They do it differently, and I didn't like it. I was like, well, if you're going to do that with this, do this here. It's an incredible sort of shot. You know what I'm talking about, right, Leo? That red tag, that out of
yeah, absolutely.
tag in the locker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Incredible shot, incredibly well done. David Ward deserves a hand clap for designing that shot that way and putting that shot together that way.
Yeah.
And then you step back and you're like, why didn't you do more of that? If you're capable, it's almost like when you got that A in school, in middle school, you came home and you told you got that A on a quiz. And so you came home and you're like, Mom, I got an A on a quiz. And she goes, oh, so you can get an A. Yeah. So now we know what to expect from you. And you're like, dang it. I never should have told you.
I cheated.
But I got the A. I feel that way with David Ward. Like, if you had not done this with the locker, I would not expect anything from you. Now I've seen this, and I'm expecting something better than what you give me. The other thing I'll say about this is what makes this film great. I know this is Major League walked so that Ted Lasso could fly. There is so much that Ted Lasso borrows from Major League that I think the people who make Ted Lasso owe David Ward some sort of residual. There is a lot. Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
I can't comment on that because I don't have Apple TV, and that's where Ted Lasso is on, right? Like, so no.
It is. Yeah, no. Ted Lasso, so much, and they change it. Like, you know, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just make it look different so it doesn't, so they don't know you cheated. Very much so. But the idea of the owner who is the wife of the original owner and has a grudge over that, and so she puts together things poorly, like all of that. By the way, Leo, James Palmer says he can show you a way to watch Ted Lasso. Watch Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso.
All right, I hear great things about it. I just don't have any way of watching it. So
a really, really incredible show all the way through, and it ended when it was supposed to. They didn't try to drag it out and make more of it than there needed to be. Great, great show. And Major League walked so that Ted Lasso could fly. I love Ted Lasso. It's one of my favorite shows, maybe of all time. And there's so much that it borrows from Major League and then makes it better. Like, it just takes it and improves on it and makes it better. What else makes this show great, or this movie great, or rewatchable, or fun, or what else do you have on your list?
I mean, the main thing, not back then, but now, like, seeing it, you said it's not rewatch. For me, it's rewatchable, but there has to be a time lapse. Like, you got to spend some time away from it so you forget some things, and then you can go back and watch it and appreciate what's there, because there's not a lot. But what is there, you can definitely appreciate if it's not so fresh in your mind. So I enjoyed rewatching it, but one of the things that made me laugh and enjoy it was the whole stigma of the whole thing of the glasses with Charlie Sheen's character, and him feeling like, oh, this is a terrible look, and he's like the nerdiest. It's such a nerdy look, and then here we are in 2025 now, and 2020s, and it's like those, I mean, hello,
right?
Like the thick brim glasses, like in the scene where they first put glasses on Charlie Sheen and he's supposed to look like some terrible ridiculous nerd. He just looks like any guy you'd see on the street or in the store right now. It's like everybody wears glasses like that, and it's kind of the accepted look, and it's fashionable now. So that kind of struck me, and I enjoyed that. I was like, okay, back then this look obviously was not favorable, but now it's just like that's what everybody wears. So
that scene where they set him up with the glasses is really funny on a couple of different levels, honestly. I love that he puts on these readers or glasses that they found somewhere, these yellow horn rim kind of frames. And
Mhm.
Eddie Harris says, those look great. I used to have a pair just like them.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And then, Lou Brown and Jake Taylor are standing there and they said, well, seeing is the most important thing. You can get yourself some that you like better another time, but seeing is the most important thing. And they walk off, and Wesley Snipes, I don't know that it's that important.
Yeah.
In a great line delivery, he's just like, I don't know that it's that important.
Yeah. And then
Um,
the other thing for me is just the whole, throughout this movie, we've already mentioned the one between Dorn and Rick Vaughn, that those are two like characters that are odds at each other, teammates that are odds with each other throughout the movie, and have to come together to kind of achieve this goal. And the other one that I think plays a prominent role is the other pair is Eddie Harris and Serrano, Pedro Serrano. There's that whole thing between him and the Jesus versus the voodoo Jobu thing, which the Jobu thing is hilarious. And you talked about lines earlier and trying to find a line that didn't have some kind of vulgarity in it. I think my favorite line is, "It's very bad to steal Jobu's rum." Very bad. Like,
I almost went with bartender Jobu needs a refill.
yeah.
I did almost go with that one. I do love the moment. Remember, Methodist pastor,
Yeah.
and so this can strike my funny bone in a really weird way. But the moment where they're arguing and Serrano says something about Jesus, I like him very much, but he no help with curveball. And,
Yeah.
and Eddie Harris says, "Are you saying Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?"
And he's really mad when he says it too. Like, he's ready to throw down. Yeah, it's just hilarious. And then
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was to say that the one that struck me a lot, that made me laugh, was on the plane scene when they're in the airplane and he's lecturing him about Jesus while he's reading a Hustler magazine.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Really, really funny. Yeah. And he gives him a hard time. He's like, "Oh, now you believe," and he's reading. Sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once, as I usually am. We may have a guest pop on here for a second. I just got a
nice
message from somebody that was upset that they didn't get an invite to talk about Major League. So I'm trying to see if I can send a and we'll maybe have a guest pop on if he's got a minute. I don't know that he does. He just is griping about not being a part of things.
Come on.
Let's see if I can get a message to him. All right. We'll see if he pops on here in a minute. Yeah, are you saying Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball is really, really funny to me. And then, yeah, you're right. The hypocrisy of him reading Hustler and then giving somebody a hard time. But I love that at the end of the movie, not only at the end of the movie are they one of the people in this celebration that hugs, but when Harris is warming up before the game, he's got Jobu on the mound with him. Signifying that these guys have found some sort of common ground, or they are teammates and they are working together in some way. I do like some of the relationships in this. I think this is a really good representation of what team dynamics feel like. There's always that Dorn. There's always that guy that is just like, I love that moment where Lou's telling them that they're all that they were meant to lose from the beginning, and if they don't do it, she's just going to get rid of everybody and find somebody that will lose.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, even me.
Even me.
There's always that guy that thinks that they are more important. I think it does a really good job of that sort of group dynamic. And team dynamic and guys, it's a guy movie. All of these movies that we've done have been guy movies, and this is another guy movie. Anything else on the list that what makes it great or rewatchable or fun or?
I think we've about covered what that subject. Yeah.
We reserve the right to circle back around if our guest pops on and he has some
Yeah.
things he wants to talk about it being great. But let's move on to things that we would change, and I'm starting things off because I don't want you to steal my thunder. I could do without the Jake and Lynn thing entirely. I love Renee Russo. I think she does a great job. I love Tom Berenger. I think he does a great job. If I want to find 15 minutes to cut out of this movie to make it a 90-minute movie, I know where I'm cutting, and it's that. I'm cutting all of that out of there. I don't care. I don't care. That's not what I came to this movie for. This is Hollywood feeling like every movie needs a love story in it somewhere, or we won't care. That's all this is. And I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. It's worthless.
Yeah, totally unnecessary. I agree.
And in 1989, he may have looked like, just really persistent or something like that. But in 2025, I'm going to tell you right now, Jake Taylor's a creepy guy, man.
Yeah.
He's like showing up at her work and following her home. And like, he's going to get a restraining order in 2024, man.
Yeah. Calling her at the restaurant when he sees him on a date and then approaching her and not letting her go. Yeah. There's some creepy thing. The creepiest, and this was my other thing that isn't really related. I agree with you. All of that could be cut out. Like, it's just totally unnecessary to the flow and the plot of the movie. It's just kind of like little side steps, side excerpts of what's going on in Jake Taylor's personal life that we don't really need to know about. But since they do show us that, what I want to know, what I was thinking, because it doesn't happen once. I don't think it even happens twice. I want to say it happens at least 3 times where he somehow ends up in where these people live. Like, just walked in and he's there. I'm like, how does that happen? I'm like, okay, San Antonio. I grew up in San Antonio, not the best side of town, not the worst either, but not the best. And doors are locked, man. Big city doors are locked. And this is supposed to be Cleveland, which I know is also a big city. Like, I can't imagine that people just leave their doors open back in 1989, even, where you could just walk into someone and all the way into the apartment, into the dining room, unannounced, like without them even knowing that you're there until all of a sudden you are. I'm like, how does that happen? And it happens more than once in this film. And I'm like,
so how does that work? I'm almost okay with the one where he shows up at the guy's apartment and they're having a dinner party or whatever. Like, it feels like that guy's apartment is the entire floor, and so like the elevator just kind of opens on his apartment, which still there has to be some sort of security there, I would think. But I almost can forgive that one. But you're telling me in 1989 a single woman with a downtown loft apartment in Cleveland got into her apartment and didn't immediately turn around and lock the door? And if she did, that means Jake Taylor picked the lock to get in there. Jake Taylor, again, 1989, I wouldn't have thought a thing about it. But in 2025, as I'm watching this movie, I'm going, and that's not the only things he does. Like, he goes up to her work. Look, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're interested in a girl, but she has given you the wrong information to contact her, do not go to her work. This is a bad idea. Jake Taylor needs a restraining order. He just does. And instead he gets rewarded for it, like throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. She ends her engagement and everything. Yeah.
By the way, again, he goes back. When they go on a road trip, he comes back to find her, and her apartment's empty. You remember this scene?
Yeah.
Her apartment's empty. She didn't lock the door again, or he picked the lock again.
Yeah.
Lynn, you're not getting your security deposit back if you don't lock the door. If you allow vagrants to come in and squat in the property, you're not getting your deposit back. The dinner party scene is annoying to me because they're treating him like a second-rate citizen because he's a professional athlete. And I'm like, look, even in 1989, man, that would be a big deal. And the lady that's like, oh, I didn't know, or I don't know, maybe it's a guy that's like, I didn't even know Cleveland still had a baseball team. Bull.
Yeah.
Bull. Even if you're not a sports fan, you know what the Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Guardians are.
Guardians.
Which is a whole nother part of that we could talk about. But anyway. And then when they talk about his salary and he's like, I make the league minimum. The league minimum was $68,000. It would be like making $120,000 a year right now. There ain't nobody in that room that would be upset with $120,000 a year to play a game. Nope. I had it correct the first time. I don't know what that was. What we had correct the first time. But in any case, it
will always be Indians.
Oh, yeah, the Indians. They should always be the Indians. Yeah, the whole thing, the whole Jekyll thing, the scene at the library, I don't need that. The scene at the dinner party, I don't need that. The scene at the restaurant, the only thing good to come out of that scene is Charlie Sheen sitting there in. Remind me, is it a jacket he's cut the sleeves off of?
It's a leather jacket with the sleeves cut off, a brown mesh t-shirt, obviously sleeveless as well, and a tie. And he says, what did he say? I look like a banker in this.
I look like a banker.
Yeah.
Best thing to come out of that whole scene. Right there.
Yeah.
But why are they going to some fancy, why are these three guys at some fancy restaurant that requires ties?
Because they're celebrating their new career. That's what I understood.
I don't know. James Palmer says it all just kind of feels like they're filler scenes. I really think I think it is Hollywood saying we will not care about these people if one of them does not have a love story going on. We have to find, and they do it. They do it in the second movie too. It's Charlie Sheen that time with the. How much do you remember of Major League 2?
Me, not much. I would have to watch it again.
He has an woman agent that is trying to rehabilitate his image in the second one. It played by the same woman that played Elsa in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And then there's another girl that he's dated before who runs like a youth nonprofit that keeps bringing the kids around to be around the Indians. And her name is Nikki or Mickey or something like that, if I remember correctly. And so there's that tension there. Again, don't need it. Not what I came for. Don't care. But they do it in both movies where they have this just pointless love story. Let's talk a little bit about Wesley Snipes.
Okay.
I like Wesley Snipes. You like Wesley Snipes? He's a decent actor. I don't think he's great. He's decent.
Yeah.
But I wish he wasn't in this movie.
Really?
So in 2, you just mentioned, we just talked a little bit about 2. He did not come back for 2. He was too big a star by the time 2 came around. And he does not come back. And so they recast with Omar Epps. And Omar Epps is so much fun in the second movie that I want him in the first one.
In the first, okay.
I think Omar Epps is way better as Willie Mays Hayes. And I want him, we got computers and we digitally fix things all the time now. Can we digitally fix Wesley Snipes and take him out of this movie and put Omar Epps
Wow.
in?
You want to take his film away from him.
I've got nothing against Wesley Snipes, but once you see Omar Epps in it, you're like, oh, that would have been better.
He did that better. Yeah, I think that was Wesley Snipes' first film, right? He'd been in stuff like before, but not a full feature films, and not anywhere near as big a role as that. I think I read something about Spike Lee wanting him to do some smaller parts in one of his other movies. And he turned it down to do this one because it was the first big role that he was actually going to be able to play.
Yeah,
So,
I heard that too. I can't remember what movie it was that Spike Lee. Be careful, might end up with a remake.
with a
They don't need to
remake.
remake this movie because they did basically with Ted Lasso, and it's awesome. So just leave this one alone. You're right. I don't see any credits for him. Some TV stuff. He was in Cats, the Goldie Hawn movie where she
small, but that's a great movie, by the way. One of my favorite movies growing up. Great football movie.
He's in that, but I don't see everything else is TV or music videos. He was in Michael Jackson's Bad video.
Yeah. I think that's where he got Spike Lee's attention, actually. He noticed him in that.
But I would take him out of the movie. I'd put Omar Epps in. It is an upgrade when we get to 2, which is basically the only thing that is an upgrade about 2. I don't know. 2 does some interesting things. Jake Taylor has to become a coach instead of a player, which I think is good and fun. He ends up becoming the manager by the end of the thing. 2's okay. Major League 2 is okay. Everything past that is trash. But Major League 2 is okay, and Omar Epps is great. They even had to reshoot some of the moments from 1 with Omar Epps in it because they do a recap. Harry Doyle does a recap at the beginning of the movie, and everybody else you're seeing scenes from the movie, but they didn't have anything with Omar Epps, so they had to go back and reshoot, like him scaling the wall to catch the ball and some of that kind of stuff. So, and then I want to talk about some of this movie making stuff that I noticed, and really it's just one shot.
Okay.
There's a shot in the game, about 7th inning of the final game, where things are rough. Things aren't going well. They're down, I think, by 2 runs. It's kind of the low point in the game. And James Gammon he's got his leg up on the stairs of the dugout, and over his shoulder. So he's in focus, but over his shoulder, you can see the scoreboard lit up. And he turns to look at the scoreboard, and then we get an insert shot of the scoreboard. Now, Leo, there's nothing wrong with making a movie that way. You show a character, you show them in the scene, it's a full shot of him. You see him look at something, and then we get a cut of what he's looking at. But because of the way that first shot is composed, all you had to do was show him down, dejected, not sure what's going on, looking up at the scoreboard, and then rack focus to the scoreboard, and it is a great moment. It is a and you can do it because you've done some stuff like this already. And we talked about, the Wild Thing, and which hadn't happened yet, but it's coming, and the shot from in the locker. And it's right there. It doesn't take a lot of, it's not like, well, I guess David Ward just didn't think of that, because it's right there. I mean, it's obvious in the way that it's shot. That's what he's getting to. It would have been great just to see him and then rack focus to that scoreboard as he looks up at it and he's down and contemplating what to do next. I think it would have been great. And if I were changing things, instead of this shot of an insert of the scoreboard, I would just rack focus to that lit up scoreboard and keep the composition of the shot, because I think it's a really good shot. You'll have to go back. Like, this is not one of those things where you go, I remember what you're talking about. You have to watch it again and see it. And then you go, I think that would have been better. Or Phillip's full of it. There's no reason to spend the time to do that. One or the other. But I really think it would have been an excellent movie making moment and you've done some of those. Like, you've shown us that you could do some of those, so do it here. It would have been better. It would have just been better.
Okay. Well, I don't have something that would have made the movie better, but I did read something about this movie that had me thinking if maybe it's what they should have done, something they were going to go with to begin with, and then it didn't do well with test audiences, so they took it out. And actually, I'm wrong. There's two things that I wish they would have taken out that I read. Go ahead. Is this what?
So now we're kind of transitioning into how this movie could have been different, because there's not a lot of casting what ifs. But this is certainly how this movie could have been different. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So originally, they're supposed to be kind of a what's the word? Not vindication, but something like that, where Phelps, the owner, is actually comes forward, and by the end of the movie, you find out that she was rooting for these guys all along. And it's true, she did put the roster together. She's the one who put, with the exception of Willie Mays Hayes, because he was just he just showed up and forced his way in. But she put this roster together with under the guys that she wanted them to lose, because she wanted to relocate to Miami. But by the end of the film, you found out that really underneath it all, she was rooting for these guys, and she put together this roster of guys that were attainable because they all had a flaw. They all had a major flaw, but that there was talent there, and they just needed someone that could get it all and put it all together and make it work and get past those flaws. And then the main one that actually was able to do that, and which was kind of her ace, was bringing in Lou Brown, and believing that Lou Brown was the one to do that. And at the end of the movie, you this is revealed, where she says she secretly has been rooting for them to win this whole time, and all of a sudden she's not the bad guy anymore. And it's just this was all part of her plan, and she kind of outsmarted everyone, and actually it came to fruition. And that didn't do so well with the test audiences, because they wanted to hate her. They had grown through this thing, watching the team, rebel against her, and that was all part of her plan. Like, she's like, I'm giving them a bad guy to hate to motivate them to actually, perform better and pull together. They needed a common enemy, and people didn't like that back in 1989. And so it was completely taken out and cut. And they even kind of, I think they refilmed a little bit at the end, where Wild Thing is coming on, they're playing the song, and she goes, I hate this song. Originally, there was scenes of her cheering for them and in the box when they were, on their rally and pulling out the win. So my question, or my thought on that was, does that plot line that got erased actually work better for an audience in 2025 or 2024? Would that necessarily be the case now, or would we appreciate that much more now than people in 1989?
So this scene exists. You can actually go watch this scene on YouTube. It's out there. I saw it today. Watched it today. And it's poorly written. But that's neither here nor there. Like, let's not.
There's a lot that's poorly written in this. So
yeah, let's not talk about the execution of it, but the idea itself, because the execution is poor. But there's a lot of poor execution in this movie, so that's okay.
Yeah.
I even understand how it actually makes a little more sense to have, the owner have been on, because here's the thing. That is a glaring thing that we all know about sports that we just choose to ignore about this movie. If she wants them to lose, and they're getting better, and these, Ricky Vaughn is becoming a decent pitcher, and Serrano is hitting home runs, there are going to be teams calling and saying, hey, You want to trade them, and you trade them for
Mhm.
nobodies. You trade them for prospects. You trade them for nothing, and you trade
Yeah.
away your best players and constantly mess with the chemistry in the locker room. Like if there's ways you want to lose, you can lose. You don't keep the same team together and let them. So some of that actually even makes sense. Some of what she says, because she does. She says, I've scouted all these players and I knew we could afford them because they all had a flaw, but I knew you were the guy to bring it all together. I scouted you
Yeah.
too. She even says that. It's
Mhm.
so hammy. It's really poorly written. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm not going to harp on that. It's really bad.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to harp on it. I don't like it. I just don't I don't like it. Even if it makes sense. Even if it makes more sense. Like I think the way we get the movie is simplified to the point that that is what this movie is. Like the bad guy is the bad guy and that's fine.
Mhm.
This is not Ted Lasso. Like Ted Lasso um would do that. Like Ted Lasso would have this tearful sort of moment of, this is what I wanted all along or something like that. James Palmer makes a great point. Moneyball before Moneyball got big. Yes.
Mhm.
That's the other thing that's weird about it is like then Rachel Phelps has invented Moneyball because that's exactly one of the theories behind Moneyball is just finding the right guys with the right flaws and covering over.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I think it's worth talking about. I think it's interesting. I'm glad that we're on this topic. I also had this thing to talk about, but I just don't like it. And maybe I don't like it because I've seen the scene and I realize how poorly executed it was. And maybe that's what test audiences didn't like about it is not that they
Mhm.
didn't like the idea, they just didn't like the way they pulled it off. But it's just not good.
Well,
Not good.
I haven't seen the scene, and if it's atrociously executed the way you say it was, then yeah, I could definitely see it. But from a perspective of modern thinking and modern sports, and way look at this guy. Oh, I
Jason
did
Spurgeon
not
from Fuel Network.
I did I did not think my screen could get any uglier than it already was with you and me on it, Philip. But
Well, I mean,
now
actually, this screen got more beautiful because I joined.
Right.
I mean,
Yes, that's what it is.
right here. You see it? Look right here. One of my favorite movies of all time.
nice.
One of the greatest sports movies, baseball movies of all time.
Pump the brakes, okay? I picked it. I picked talking about this movie, and you're going overboard. One of the greatest sports movies of all time.
Name
Now,
another great
Ho-
comedy baseball movie besides
ho-
this movie right
Bull
here.
Durham, Sandlot.
yeah,
Bull Durham
Sandlot,
baseball
Two.
movies.
I
Bull
gave you
Durham,
two.
maybe
Little
do Bull Durham
Giants.
number 2. Sandlot maybe number 5.
Uh,
I
okay.
mean, come on.
Okay. I'll say this before earlier we were talking about how this movie or what makes this movie great, and we kind of had a little bit of a discussion on our thoughts on the movie overall. But what Philip and I think he hit the nail on the head. What Philip said about this movie is the ending scene, the last 20 or 30 minutes of the game against the New York Yankees, that put together is probably the greatest ending of any sports movie. And if that's what you walk away from, I could see why you might put this movie near the top and forget all the other filler stuff that led up to that. But if you just take that ending and that's what's in your head, then yeah, you're going to put this movie a lot higher than if you take the whole encompassing film.
I mean, let's look at it this way. You have to look at that last scene, right? And they bring in the Ricker, they bring in the Wild Thing, who had been rocked all the time by that. What was the guy's name? He wore number 14 for the Yankees, right?
Hayward.
Yeah.
Hayward.
Lou Hayward.
The
Hayward
nose hair guy.
Right. He had rocked Vaughn all year long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here they go. They're like, we're bringing the Ricker in. We're bringing the Wild thing in to end this game out. And what the night before, the Wild thing had his way with Corbin Burnson's wife and the Tom Berenger character. What was his name as the catcher? He's
Jake
like,
Taylor.
oh,
Jake Taylor.
yeah. It's like, oh my God. Taylor's like, this is going to be bad. And he goes, just give me the ball. And he puts the ball. And I know you guys are a little more family friendly than I am. But he goes, get this effer out. And just throws it in the glove.
Mm-hmm.
Shows how they didn't let egos or anything. They just all trusted each other. Until the end, he socked them, which was one of the greatest scenes. I mean, yes, it was the greatest scene. And then plus, this movie came out in 1989, right?
Yep.
That's correct.
So I'm at that time, let's see, I was born in 76, so I'm 13
You're 13,
years old.
just like me.
Right. This was the first time you really got to see a woman in her skimpies.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. That whole Philip and I touched on it earlier, but we didn't talk about this aspect of it. Like Philip completely forgot about the cardboard stand-up and taking off the little pieces as for each win, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I remember being a lot more impressed with the scene where you get to finally see it with all of that stuff off than I am now as an adult. Yeah, as a 13-year-old, that scene was like, if I had a pause button, like, oh, let's pause that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few times I paused there was a few times I paused that scene in that movie.
Lie. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, come on. I mean, it was literally one of the greatest things we'd ever seen in sports. And as a kid, in here, I got something for you guys. You guys ready? Look at this. Yeah. Watch this. You guys ready? See, I'm getting to try things out on my studio because I rearranged my studio because I've been frozen for the last few days. I'm not going to play no audio of it, but here you go. I mean, check it out right here. They tell us you're a pitcher.
We wear hats and sleeves in this level.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, come on. Let's see what you got. Here, I'll make it a little bigger for you. I don't want to have to take up the whole screen, but here goes. Boom, right there. I mean, come on, guys. I mean,
it's a good movie. We're talking about it, but greatest.
I don't know if it's the greatest sports movie ever. I don't know about
I said the greatest sports baseball comedy.
Oh.
I'd still take Bull Durham and Sandlot over it,
Sandlot,
but I like it. Yeah,
it's good. It was okay.
So weigh in, Jason, on the Jake Lynn romance. Why do we need this in this movie? Why do we spend 25 minutes of runtime on this movie on
Here he
Jake
goes
and
with
Lynn?
The romance. Here you
Why
go
are
with
we
the
doing
romance,
this?
Phil.
That's not what I came to this movie for.
Phil,
I came for a baseball team.
It's unnecessary. I agree with Philip on this one. It's unnecessary.
Wait a second. Do you guys have problems with romance?
No, but it's just not necessary to this whole entire plot. The flow of the movie.
Pointless.
Yeah.
It was, because if you remember, he was making it in the major leagues when she was there with them. He was a bad boy, having the different ladies of the night in the different cities. She got upset, and then he realized he let the one true love of his go away. And now he wanted to make it right again. So he did it.
But it makes him look creepy, as Philip has already
creepy.
Listen,
he is
makes him
definitely a creep.
Listen, most men are creepy. Let's just put it like that. Most of us, we are creeps, guys. I mean, come on. I mean,
He needs
we
a
haven't done
restraining
some
order.
gun stuff before in our lives to impress our women.
Oh yeah, of course.
So when you popped on, we were talking about this alternate ending. Are you aware of this? Have you seen this?
No, I have not.
So it's out there. It's on YouTube, and you can watch it later. But there is a scene where Gammon, Lou Brown, comes into the office to offer his resignation before she can fire him. And she admits that all of this has been a ruse. She did this on purpose as a way to motivate the team. She has been cheering for them and wanted them to win the whole time. And she scouted all of them, and this was the only way she could afford to keep the team running because they were in such a bad place financially that they had to get attendance up. So she went and got the cheapest player she could and found the best manager to motivate them. And she's really the good guy because she pulled all of this together, and test audiences watched it and hated it. Now, it's poorly done. Like, you can go watch the scene, and in my opinion, it's very hammy and very dialogue heavy.
I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
I just did pulled it up, and I do now remember, but I completely forgot about it because for some dumb reason, myself thought it was in the actual movie itself. But I do remember seeing it, and you're right. It would not have been the great ending that we did have.
Well,
in
so
the way it worked.
And that was what I'm speculating on. I brought it up and I said, I especially if the scene was poorly done, as Phillip says, I haven't seen the scene, but in 1989, the perspective of women in sports versus what it is now, I think that ending would actually be received much better now, where it's like it was a woman who, this was the brainchild of a woman from the very beginning and understood that these guys needed a common enemy in order to pull together. And she was actually the brains behind all of this and made it work. Of course, she needed the man that was going to steer the ship, and that was Lou Brown. And she's, she found him and did her part playing the bad guy. And it was her plan from the get-go. I think something like that in today's society and how we're more accepting of women in sports and understanding that women can be successful and do things and be leaders and in a sports area that was still is, but even more so back in the 80s and 90s, dominated by men, where something like that back then would have been perceived as totally unrealistic and fantastic, a fantasy, where today it's like, yeah, good for her. I think it would be more accepted because it was taken out because it did poorly for test audiences. It wasn't taken out because they didn't like the ending. It was taken out because test audiences didn't like the ending. I think in today's society, that would have been received a whole lot better, and maybe we would have had a different modern day major league and it would work.
Well,
I think we would need hints of that throughout the movie. I think we would need little nods that direction so that it wouldn't hit us. And I think at that point, and at this point, we're almost remaking the movie, Leo. But I think at that point, you have to find a different motivational tactic than the cardboard standee. Because if you're doing that to that character and then trying to redeem that character later, that's not going to work.
No.
So you're going to do something different there. I see what you're saying. And Leo, I really want you to go. Jason Spurge, have you watched Ted Lasso?
I have, but I watch it behind. So I don't have Apple TV. So I have seen a few episodes, but something on what Leo said with that character, you'd have had to, and Phil, like you had said, you'd have had to completely rewrite the storyline because of that one scene of them ripping off her clothes and the pieces of her clothes to show her in her little swimsuit, negligee, whatever it was. But what I will say this is this movie, when it was made, actually made it to where it showed that women didn't even like sports, didn't even care about sports.
Mhm.
Like, she took over this team and she's like, oh my God, I don't want this team. I want to sell them, so let me tank them. Now, it kind of makes a woman not look that bright because we all know if the team is tanking, as the hat that he's wearing right there, tanking, the team gets sold for cheaper than what they're actually worth. So
No, she wanted to. She wanted to
She wanted to
move the team.
relocate to Miami.
Well, yeah, she
And
wanted
the only way out of her lease with the city of Cleveland was they had to be below a certain attendance rate. This is actually a real thing that David Ward took from the Minnesota Twins. The ownership of Minnesota Twins actually tried to do this at one point.
Yeah.
Tried to tank the team to get below attendance rates so that they could get out of their lease.
Well, I mean, listen, we know it didn't work, and we know it didn't work in it. How long's it taken Oakland to get out of Oakland?
Right.
Mhm.
And they're lucky if they draw in 2,500 people a game, right?
Right.
But what she has to realize, you're tanking the team. Even if you relocate the team, you've already
Yeah,
burnt
good
the
luck.
fan bases. It's not going to help you any. You know what I'm saying? It's going to hurt you.
Yeah,
So
good luck
yeah.
selling tickets. Yep.
Right. In a way, okay, so she takes the team, relocates them. How's that going to work when she goes to the new city? It's not going to, it's going to make her look bad. So in a way, this kind of made the movie look bad. Now, to what Leo said, if you really think about it, we had never seen a women's owner for any sports teams until really this movie. Until Major Leagues.
No, you're right.
I don't think you're
We've
wrong
had
about
them
that. Yeah.
since. You've got Cameron Diaz in Any Given Sunday, and then Rebecca in Ted Lasso. God, I want you guys to go watch Ted Lasso.
Well, let's not forget about Draft Day, because you have Kevin Costner's daughter. When he's playing the GM of the Browns, she has a pivotal role in helping draft the Cleveland Browns.
Mhm.
So this movie kind of showed that women could actually be powerful figures in sports. I mean, hell, look now, you have a woman who owns an entire football league that she sold half of it off to Fox. That's all we'll say about that.
But it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that in an empowering way. And man, we're getting really, really heady for what is ultimately a screwball comedy. But it doesn't do that in a women's power sort of way. She is a showgirl who married an old owner and he died and she got the team. So let's not.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it. If little girls would have seen this movie and how they would have taken it, they could have taken it in a couple different ways. Oh, I just got to go marry a rich owner and I can have a team like Georgia Frontier did with the Rams. She didn't really go for that team. Or they could say, look, that's something I could work to. I mean, I'm saying this was the start of the groundwork for more powerful women characters in sports movies.
Yeah, and think about it. I mean, to me, that's a good story. That's a good story. A showgirl that falls in love or whatever the situation may be. You may say it may not necessarily be that she fell in love, but marries a rich sports owner. The sports owner has not been able to make his team successful for decades. Then finally he kicks the bucket and she by default takes over. And she's like, all right, I know exactly how to take this failure of a franchise for decades, the showgirl, and I can make this and turn around and make it a winner. And she does. That's a good story, right? Tell me like a synopsis of a script, and that's the synopsis of the movie. And it's a movie that I probably want to see.
Yeah, it's not Major League at that point, but you're right.
No,
I mean, that sounds like a good movie. That's not Major League.
What movie?
But that's
is
what
it?
Major League was meant to be at the beginning, is my point. And
Maybe.
the target audience took it away.
No, I think it was meant to be a screwball comedy. I mean, come on, look who you had as the announcer.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Bob
great.
Uecker, and he would be like, well, it's a bit outside. I mean, you had some of the greatest lines that they still use in baseball today, as announcing. I mean, what was the movie with Clint Eastwood and his daughter, where they're the He's the scout for the team.
Oh yeah. I
Got
don't remember
Timberlake in it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's the storyline that Major League should have had. It was, the daughter, the wife wanting to impress everybody else. I think it was great the way they did. I mean, if you've never
Trouble with
seen
the Curve. Trouble with the
That's-
Curve is what that movie's called.
Look, if you've never seen the alternate ending of the movie, see, Leo, here's why I say it, because now I remember seeing it. I agree with Phil. The alternate ending makes me not even like this woman even more.
Yes,
It makes me
I
just
agree.
to humiliate her even more than what they already have.
Mm.
And like they have in the previous movies.
And again, that's execution. That's not necessarily that it's a bad idea. It would just have been very poorly executed to tack this scene into the movie and try to redeem her out of nowhere like this. I think you have to do some work.
Oh yeah, you'd
to
have
make
had
this
to.
work.
You got to see the ending scene to understand it. Which
Speaking of ending,
And I haven't seen it, so gotcha.
Speaking of endings, there was a denouement that was originally supposed to be on the end of this movie. The game ends, and then we jump forward in time a little bit, and underneath the credits, ultimately, I think is what they were talking about, we get Jake and Lynn's wedding. Obviously, I don't think the Jake and Lynn thing even belongs in this movie, so I'm glad they didn't do that as the ending. It makes the whole movie about their story, and that's not what this movie is about, even as it exists now. It's not about
I have a question for you, Phil.
Sure.
What is it with you in romances that you just don't like in sports movies? What is it, pal? I have to know this.
And westerns.
In westerns.
So here's the thing.
Every time I've watched these, and there's been some issue with a love story, you're like, that didn't belong in the movie.
Because every movie doesn't need a love story. Every movie doesn't have to have a love story. We don't need that. One of the things that we were talking about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now when we did Alien is the fact that they removed what was supposed to be a love story from Alien between Dallas and Ripley. Thank God.
Well,
that doesn't belong anywhere in that movie. That would be crazy.
When's the last time you've seen a sci-fi movie with a love story?
They all Star Wars at all.
That wasn't really a love story. Stop it. I mean, look, you talk about love. Sandlot had a love story in it. Smalls had a thing for Wendy. The lifeguard. He purposely drowned himself. Yeah. So is that okay to have that kind of a love story?
I have issues with that whole
my God.
Tricking somebody into kissing you sort of thing. Yeah, you want to talk about a creep factor.
But he's a kid. He's a kid.
That makes sense, and I won't say it's integral to the movie, but it's a coming-of-age story, and that's a coming-of-age kind of thing. And that makes sense to me.
Okay.
I don't need Jake and Lynn in this movie. I don't need it.
Is his coming of age, knowing how much he messed up in his previous life that he had with her, that he came of age to become a better person.
Every movie does not need a love story. In fact, we could do a lot better if we deleted some of these love stories from those. Now, some movies need to be all love story. I do like movies about a good love story. I'm a huge fan.
I don't really think you do at all.
Lots of romantic comedies. I love When Harry Met Sally. I love Sleepless in Seattle. I put both of them on my list of things I would cover on this show, and Leo would not check box either of them so that we would be in agreement on them. So it's not me. It's Leo. It's Leo's fault. This is all Leo's fault that we haven't done any romantic movies because I had him on the list, man.
He did. I nixed him. It's my fault. It's my fault.
When Harry Met Sally is a great movie. Sleepless in Seattle, it's a great movie.
I mean, yeah, they're both great movies, but they're not as good as Major League. Major League is a dude story.
Both of those movies are better than Major League. I'm sorry.
No, they're not.
Both of those movies are better than.
If they were better than Major Leagues, then why aren't you guys talking about them?
Because we needed to talk about a screwball comedy. We needed to talk about a sports movie,
Yeah.
and this fit both of those. So I picked it.
This project wasn't about pick the 10 best movies and then we'll do a show about each one. There are definitely movies out there that are better and, you know, worse than some of the movies we've covered. But
now,
yeah.
you know what? Now you guys got me curious. I want to see something. You got
Hey,
me
how about
curious.
this? You want to talk about love stories being pertinent to a movie, but also being totally unnecessary? I'm going to say one that's going to piss everybody off. Titanic. Titanic didn't need the love story. It was so bad.
You can cut that movie in half if you cut the love story out of it, and I think we're all okay with that.
Listen. Hold on.
What's Jason got? You got something good, I can tell.
To be honest, Leo, for it to be the movie that it is, it does need it.
Exactly.
Well, to reach the audience that it reached, but yes, that's the only reason it was in there.
Okay, Spurge, how about this one?
I know somebody's texting Leo that right now, just ribbing me about Titanic.
I want to replace, you may have missed this, we talked about this just before you got on here. I want to replace Wesley Snipes in this movie with Omar Epps. Omar Epps played Willie Mays Hayes in Major League 2, and I think he is so good in Major League 2 that I just want to replace him in Major League with Omar Epps. I think he would be better.
Well, first of all, Omar Epps wasn't old enough to do this first movie.
He was
first of all. Here he goes again with replacing people of that they're not even old enough at the time to even participate in the movie.
Let's see. Well, Wesley, when did 2 come out? Let's see here.
In Major League is ranked. What is this website I found? Major League. This is from
94.
Sportsidica. Major League is ranked the 4th greatest sports movie of all time.
What's ahead of it?
Bull Durham, A League of Their Own, Field of Dreams.
All better movies. All 3 of those are better movies than Major
League.
Hey, but they're not comedies.
None of them are comedies, though.
Besides Bull Durham. Bull Durham's a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So is that love story integral to it?
Yes, because that's the point of the freaking movie.
Listen,
that is not the point of this movie.
You got Leo over here saying that Titanic doesn't need its love story with Rose and Jack, even though there was enough room on that board for Jack to get on. Rose is an evil broad.
There was.
Evil. Rose is evil. So Titanic, my all-time favorite movie of all time. Love that movie. How old is? Have we looked up how old Omar Epps is?
He was 16. I looked it up.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Bill. Oh, stop it! Stop it!
He was 16 when Major League came out. Yeah, probably a little too young.
Yeah, just a tad, little bit too young there to do that. No,
Rose
I think the thing
Jack.
with
Yes.
right, the
She
thing
did.
with Major Leagues, yeah, Rose did kill Jack. Though you're lucky this is a family show. I'd be saying some choice words about Rose, even though I like Rose. But Rose was an evil, evil woman. A devil woman is what Rose was.
But Kate Winslet,
she looks good in that movie. She looked good. But anyways, this movie has some of the most. This movie has some of the most memorable lines of it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it has lines that I use most often. So we've talked a little bit already about TP Talk when he welcomes fans into TP Talk and he says, in case you haven't noticed and judging by the attendance, you haven't. I love that line. I use that line. There's another one that I love anytime I watch an NFL, any football game, NFL, UFL, and a guy hurdles an opponent. I always think of Lou Brown after Willie Mays Hayes makes his little basket catch. and he's running back into the dugout, and Lou Brown goes, "That was a great catch. Don't ever effing do it again."
Do that again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I think of every time somebody hurdles an opponent is, "That looked really cool. Don't ever do that again."
Or, you go back to Bob Uecker and just a bit outside. You
Just
get
a
a
bit
guy that kicks a
outside.
field goal. You go just a bit outside. You know what I'm saying? Or when, when Willie Mays Hayes is stealing and he slides and he goes, and he's a tad bit short. And then the second baseman's sitting there waving the glove at him and taps him on his head. I mean, it's just one of those movies that you could still watch today, and you could still laugh about it.
Oh yeah,
there is a line. There's a great line in Major League 2 that I wish was in this movie because it's one of my favorite Lou Brown moments, and I have to reference it in 2 instead of 1. Is where he comes into the dugout or into the clubhouse at one point, and he says, "All right, we won one yesterday. If we win one today, that's 2 in a row. If we win one tomorrow, that's called a winning streak. It has been known to happen." I love that line. I use that line all the time. It's great.
Well, and then you got when Serrano's got to do his sacrifice with the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We should have got him a live chicken.
We should have got him a live chicken.
Should have got him a live chicken. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like to me, like I can still watch Sandlot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good movie.
And it
Great
still
movie.
holds up, but like I still like A League of Their Own. I just can't watch it anymore.
Oh, it's a great movie. League of Their Own is one of the best movies.
It just doesn't hold up for me.
It might be in my top 10 or 15 of all time. I love A League of Their Own. It is an incredible movie.
Like I'm just looking at them and I'm just like, yeah, Major League just hangs right there. You know what I mean?
It's good. It's not. I mean, one of the things that we talk about on the show is like, where does this film rank for you? And I literally wrote on my notes, Like,
okay, but
I wouldn't put it in the top of anything. I wouldn't put it in the top sports movies. If you're talking top sports screwball comedies, you're like, yeah, I guess it's in the top of that because
right. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not going to watch basketball over and over again because it's funny.
You're not?
But, no.
I mean, look, are you going to put it above Rookie of the Year?
Yeah.
Rookie of the Yes, it's better than Rookie of the Year. Little Big League Angels in the outfield, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, are you going to put it up against Mr. 3000?
Never even seen that.
Okay, I'm talking comedy, screwball comedy movies, right? Oh, you going to put it up against? I mean, the Bad News Bears from 1976.
Ooh, Bad News Bears is good.
It is
Bad
good.
News Bears is really good.
They're comparable.
But
I put them in the same category. Yeah.
Okay, screwball comedy. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Sandlot's not a screwball comedy.
Is Major League just Bad News Bears again?
Just an adult version of Bad News Bears.
It kind of is, right? It kind of is.
It really is if you think about it.
Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah. It kind of is.
I mean, now that you think about it, it kind of is just the grown-up version of Bad News Bears. Okay, here. Are you going to put it up against, what was the movie that Tom Selleck did, Mr. Baseball?
Ugh.
You going to, is Major League for screwball comedies? Is it going to be above that?
Now all I can think of is like, would I replace James Gammon with Walter Matthau in Major League? That might be fun.
You would always replacing somebody. But boys, I do appreciate you having me come on, but I've had this cold for the past few weeks. And if I start coughing, I have like this major pain right here.
Ouch.
Yeah, and it's like it's getting to the point to where I'm getting bruises from it. So.
Yikes.
What's your guys' next movie you're going to talk about?
So we never reveal the movie on the show.
We always give a hint.
We always give some hints. What kind of hints should we give, Leo?
Well, because I want to see if I want to join. Because like if you'd have told me, I'd have joined for Major League a lot earlier.
I think the hint on this one could be like the good guy and the antagonist and the bad guy are almost the same guy. They're like interchangeable. They're like mirror versions.
I want a version. I am saving this for 2 weeks from now, but I will say it right now. There are two primary people in our next movie. And I would love if they had shot the movie the way they got it and then shot it again, like the same movie, and switched the two actors. I think it would have been an incredible experiment.
Well, like
it is.
So the one movie I could think of, right? You guys aren't going to tell me if I say it, right?
Probably not. No.
Didn't you send this list out a long, long time ago?
We might tell you afterwards off of the air. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't even remember. So like, there's one movie that I can think of, and it's probably a movie that I can't stand it because I was so excited that these two men were actually going to share the screen for the first time. Am I close?
Stop right now. Yes, you have it.
Yeah,
you're right.
I think you've got it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Stop right now. Don't reveal. But yes, you. That's exactly what movie it is.
When you said that, that's exactly what I thought of.
But I would love to take. So now that we all know what we're talking about, I would love.
I would agree. I think
created the movie that they created and then switched them and shot the movie again and done
I think it would have been
awesome.
I think it would have been a much better movie.
I don't know about better, but I would have loved to have seen what it looks like.
I'm gonna go. Now I'm gonna have to go watch that movie because it's been so long since I've seen it.
Such a good movie, slow burn, and there are definitely parts of it.
A slow burn. Die Hard was definitely a slow burn. Like if you would have switched Heinz Gruber and John McClane, it would have been a totally different movie.
Totally different movie.
Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, and now I'm gonna switch them.
Give you guys his last movie away for 2 weeks ago was Die Hard.
But yeah, you got us. No,
my bad.
Not Die Hard.
Damn it, my bad.
Yeah, if we were gonna do Die Hard, that would have been.
We can't do Die Hard because
we would have done it around Christmas. Exactly.
Oh my God, it's not a Christmas
Only
movie.
do Die Hard during Christmas.
It's not a Christmas movie, according to Bruce Willis.
On that subject, I know we're getting off subject here, but just real quick, there's a new movie that just came out on Netflix. Carry On. Not a great movie, but a good movie. And I
haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
You haven't watched it
yet? I haven't watched it yet.
I really like Jason Bateman.
Leo,
I'm a big Jason Bateman fan. That's
why
I want to watch it.
Take Phil out of here then, because I got to have a conversation with. Because that was a good. I was like,
yeah,
you know good. What? This is a really good movie,
and it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
they released it around Christmas, and they
movie.
And if that's a Christmas movie, so is Die Hard. Because they have the same elements. They have the same elements. They do
not.
No. Jason, what you got going on? What's going on at Fuel right now? We got a few minutes to promote something. What do you want to promote?
The B-Hog Live is coming back next week. I'm starting my own show that will be starting up next week. We'll be covering all sports pretty much, right? We got you guys coming back here soon with the
February. I think we're going to be back in February.
Right? Me and Arlington are still working out the schedule for the for his work schedule. So we got a lot of stuff coming up here in Fuel. Be looking in the spring or round. I want to say, late summer, early fall for women's flag football being broadcasted here on Fuel Sports Network.
Cool.
We're going to be broadcasting some women's flag football.
Did your Battlehawk schedule hose you guys off as bad as the Brahma schedule hosed some of our fans off down here?
You want my honest opinion?
Sure.
Yeah.
I actually like the schedule, and I think it was a great way that they did the schedule.
Even the San Antonio side of things.
For the Battlehawks.
For the entire league itself. You figure it out. Look, you figure it out. You look at it like this, right? If you're a Texas team, right? There are weekends where you can go to 3 games. You could go to all 3 Texas teams in one weekend.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But the important thing for this market, San Antonio, and I don't know, it could be anywhere, is having the time before the game is almost as important as having the game itself. And
That is
2
true.
Friday night games
Mhm.
and a Sunday morning game and only 4 games has completely deleted that. And I think they've set themselves. Look, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I think they've set themselves up for failure in San Antonio. And now people are going to look at our numbers because everybody does that, and they're going to go, "Oh, San Antonio doesn't support its team," when you really just took half of what people love about this experience away.
I mean, look, you're right.
Spurge, you're one of the few people outside of San Antonio that's been to San Antonio and experienced the full game experience as San Antonio does it with the tailgating and everything. And to rip that piece away is really significant because really that's what they've done.
Well, here's the question: was it the league or was it the city of San Antonio?
I mean, I'm not pointing the finger and saying it's the league or it's this or it's that. I'm just saying it's bad. It's a very bad thing.
In a way, Spurge, it doesn't matter whose fault it was. One of them will exist if this thing falls apart, and one of them will not.
That is true. I mean, yeah, the way that your guys' schedule is set up, it does kind of suck because I can tell you this: St. Louis, a lot of people aren't going to tailgate in St. Louis on a Friday night, right? It's a lot of people are going to work and stuff like that, right?
Working class people, just like here,
right? The problem with this league is this league's got to establish itself more so it gets higher on the priority of scheduling. That's the biggest thing right there.
Right. They got to understand that they had their own issues come up with the Final Four. I understand that, and I understand that made this difficult. And I'm even willing to say, hey, it's not what we prefer. But boy, this is Leo. Is this 2 or 3 schedules in a row that really just sets us up in a bad position?
It'll be 2.
No, I feel like the XFL year we did not have a great schedule either.
Well, because they did the Easter weekend and then the Fiesta weekend where you were competing with Fiesta and half the parking lot was taken away.
Yeah, and then didn't we have a game that started like 9 p.m. one night?
Yeah,
that was XFL, wasn't it?
XFL year.
Yep, that was XFL. So there's been some mishaps over the last couple of years, but this schedule is like almost entirely a mishap. Like everything, there's only 4 games to begin with instead of 5. And then of the 4, 2 are on Friday night. So most working class people aren't going to be able to sacrifice a day of work so that they can go out and tailgate on a Friday.
Well, maybe they didn't like all you drunk San Antonios hanging out around around too much. Maybe that was the problem.
Yeah, maybe. And like I said, I'm not pointing the finger at the league.
Money on their products, so
I'm not pointing the finger at the league or at the city or at the Alamo Dome or anybody. It doesn't matter whose fault it is, but none of that makes it where it's going to be okay. It's bad, and I'm worried. I'm worried about this fan base, and I'm worried about what it's going to look like, regardless of the why. It's just that, you can excuse yourself and you can give these excuses, whether they're legitimate excuses or you can argue the fact, whatever. But the only ones that are going to buy into that and go, okay, are the diehard fans. And those are the ones that are already there.
Well, look, and if you really want to be honest with this, the way they should have done this is they should have given you guys at least 4 home games right in a row.
So one of the biggest issues that we're going to have here, Spurge, is you see that gray area to start the season. I'm going to tell you right now. I understand why it had to be that way, but I'm just telling you, just realistically, as a person who knows the San Antonio fan base, if they come out of that 1-3, the rest of it doesn't matter. You're not going to draw anybody to the Alamo Dome, period. It's just not.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you guys came into St. Louis and beat us when it needed to happen, so you can win in St. Louis. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Hopefully,
it's going to be interesting. Let's just put it like that. It's going to be interesting how this year goes for this league.
Mm-hmm. What I like the least, honest, Jason, and this has nothing to do with the city of St. Louis or the people there or anything, but I don't understand the away home game being in St. Louis other than the league trying to kick up attendance numbers. Why not put it somewhere in Texas where if, Brahma fans want to at least make the trip, they can easily do so to see that home game, whether it's Arlington or Houston. It boggles my mind there's no way I can wrap my head around understanding and accepting a home game all the way in St. Louis. That is a long way away.
I would have to agree with you. They could have put it in Houston. They could have put it in Arlington. I have to agree with you. It would have been smarter to do it in one of those two cities.
Yep.
And Houston and Arlington. I agree with you. St. Louis, I don't think it was a great idea. They should have done it in somewhere in the Texas area. Just my opinion.
Circling back around to Major League.
There you go. Let's do it.
We can wrap that up. For me, it's an it's okay. It's an okay movie, and I like it. But it's not going to be on the top list of really anything unless you get super specific. For Spurge, it is his favorite movie of all time, bar none.
No, that is not. No,
he said Titanic. Major League is number 2.
No,
right, Titanic and then Major League. You're right.
I said for sports baseball movies, it's my favorite.
Oh, there are 3 better. Sports baseball movies, there might be more than that. But there's at least 3 that are better. Oh, 4. I'm sorry, 4.
No. Okay, number 2, Bull Durham, then Major Leagues.
Bull Durham, Sandlot.
Love Story.
League of Their Own.
Love Story.
And Field of Dreams, dude. Field of Dreams ain't got nothing on Major League.
Love Story. So see, those all don't count, Phil, because you don't like love stories. Those all have love stories in them, see? See how that works?
I would push, if I really wanted to continue this conversation longer, I don't, so I'll say this out loud, but if I wanted to, I would say that there is no love story aspect to Field of Dreams.
Yes,
it is a father-son story, but there's no love story.
The love of your father wanting to play catch with your father. That's the love story.
Different. That's different.
No,
that's not what we're talking about.
I wish
I'm talking about a romantic love story, like forcing Tom Berenger and Renee Russo. By the way, Renee Russo is a model before this, and then she becomes an actress, and a really popular actress, and a really good actress.
Right.
Through this movie. So
once she learned to keep her hands down, because that was the other thing they actually tied her hands down while filming this because they couldn't keep her from moving her hands and her arms. And so they actually physically tied her hands down, just one take, but they did it so that she could get it. And then she got it. And then to be fair, the rest of her career, she credited what's his name, Phillip, the guy who's directed this.
David Ward?
Yeah, David Ward for doing that to her because she used it throughout her acting career. But I thought that was really interesting that they actually tied her up or tied her hands down.
Mark Yamaguchi wants to throw in Forrest Gump for one of Dirty's favorite movies, I think.
Me and Jenny, we was like peas and carrots. I'd like
what's funny? You know what's funny about Forrest Gump?
Mr. Phil, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Phil and Mr. Leo for letting me join on your program today.
You know what's funny about Forrest Gump? Forrest Gump was the Best Picture winner in 1994, and it is the 3rd best movie of 1994.
I agree. I agree with you. Forrest Gump is in my tops of all 5 movies, all-time movies, but it was not better than Shawshank Redemption
or Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, it was better than Pulp Fiction. It was better than Pulp Fiction.
No, I disagree.
Yeah. Okay. Like Mr.
It's a
Mark
good movie.
Says, no, like Mr. Mark here says, stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah.
No, Pulp Fiction is nowhere near. No, it's not.
Pulp Fiction is 10 times the movie.
Quentin Tarantino's worst movie.
Whoa, hey,
Quentin Tarantino's worst movie.
Whoa.
Quentin Tarantino's worst movie.
Worst movie.
Pulp
Worst
Fiction.
movie.
Pulp Fiction.
No,
Pulp
you don't know what
Fiction.
you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I do. His worst movie.
His name is Spurge, and he is part of Fuel Network, and you can see him on Fuel Network. Download Fuel Network on your Roku TV, your Apple Fire TV, just about anywhere. And what's the website that they can watch on?
FuelSportsNetwork.com.
There you go. That's Spurge, and
They can watch you guys on there too.
Yeah,
Yep.
you sure can. Bye, Spurge. Be good.
Thanks, Spurge. See you
Get over
later,
your
man.
cold, man.
Yeah, get better.
Pulp Fiction is the worst Quentin Tarantino movie. Good.
No,
what
not.
is he talking about? Pulp Fiction changed film, changed
It
the way
did.
film was made. It is one of the most impactful films of my lifetime. I'm not saying it's one of the best. I like it, but it's one of the most impactful films of the past 40 years.
Obviously, Spurge has never seen Planet Terror because Planet Terror is pretty bad. It's spectacular, but it's bad.
Kill Bill. I'm not a huge fan of Kill Bill.
I like Kill Bill.
It's okay, but I'm not a huge fan of that. Tarantino's done some. Yeah, no, not his worst. One of his best. Would I say that that's Tarantino's best?
Mm.
I don't know about that. I really like Reservoir Dogs. I think that it is a great example of who Tarantino is all the way through.
Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards. Oh, those are so good. That's a good question. Like that's a whole conversation all in its own. What is Tarantino's best movie?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But what else about Major League? Would you remake this movie? Like, would you want to see them either remake this movie or like make a TV series out of this movie or anything like that?
I mean, the TV series might have my interest for like an episode or two, but I can't see watching, multiple episodes. I mean, maybe. I guess it depends on how it's done, but I could see watching a remake of it. I wish they'd kept Jeremy Piven in it because he was in it and they took him out.
They did,
and I love Jeremy Piven. You're talking about what could have been like. I wish it could have been.
It's so funny. He was supposed to be this heckling fan that existed in the movie, and they just ended up lifting all of his stuff right out of it. And then when 2 comes along, they make another heckling fan and cast Randy Quaid. And then they left that in. And it's not good. Like the Randy Quaid stuff in 2 is dumb. But it's very odd that they had Piven.
Yeah,
said no, and then they get Quaid, and they go, yes, that makes this movie.
There we go. Yeah, no. So if there was a remake, I want him to have Jeremy Piven in it, and I don't ask me why, but it's something that came to my mind immediately when watching this movie this past week. If they did a remake and they had the group of fans that were there from the beginning with the teepee, the drumming fans, that kind of funny wild group, Will Ferrell would have to be one of them. Like I could totally see Will Ferrell. I know he probably wouldn't, but I could totally see him doing that, playing a role there.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret about Will Ferrell.
What's that?
He's not funny.
Okay.
Like he has his moments in Anchorman and Talladega Nights. Like there are some there are moments that he is funny, but on a whole, I'm so tired of his bit. Like I'm
tired of and not funny are two different things, though. It could be repetitive. It's the same thing over and over. But
I miss Will Ferrell as this bit guy who would come into movies and make them better. His character in Austin Powers is hilarious. His character in Old School is hilarious. When he was when he was something added in. Jack Black is the same thing. When he's something added into the movie, he's great. When he is the focus of the movie, I'm just tired of it.
Well, there you go. Make him one of the TP fans. He's just added in. He'll be great. That's what I'm saying. We agree. We agree.
We agree. We agree. So we get back together on the 21st of January, our final movie, and we've given a lot of hints. I think if you listen to our conversation between ourselves and Spurge from the Fuel Network, and you don't get the movie, you weren't ever going to get it.
Yeah,
you weren't going to know what it was. Mark Yamaguchi says, how about Hangover? You want to know a secret? I've never seen a Hangover movie.
Oh, man.
None of them.
That first one was great. That was comedy gold because it was cutting edge. Like they did stuff no one had ever done before at the time.
By the time I would have gotten around to seeing it, 2 and 3 existed, and I was already tired of it before I even watched it. So I've never seen a Hangover movie. Maybe that's on me. Maybe that's my bad. Maybe I need to go back and watch one.
It's too bad you can't get that back because, yeah.
But subsequent movies can ruin the movie. I've been listening to a lot of movie podcasts or a movie podcast recently, and one of the guy's favorite movies, he talks about it all the time because it's a favorite movie, is The Matrix. I like The Matrix. I, in fact, love The Matrix. But the subsequent sequels ruined The Matrix for me, because even now, when I watch The Matrix, I'm so upset about how terrible the sequels were that I can't watch The Matrix.
Yep.
So sequels can ruin the original.
Yep. Yeah, totally true. That's what I meant. Like that's lost to you forever on The Hangover, and it's not even just the sequels. It's because other movies kind of did what they did, and they were kind of the first to do things, and so it becomes old. It's not new anymore, and that's part of what makes a movie great when they are the first to do something. Pulp Fiction, you know.
Yes, Pulp Fiction. James Palmer tends not to watch a lot of sequels. That's a good rule of thumb, actually. I wish more people would do that. I wish they'd stop making so many sequels. I want new, fresh ideas. I don't need Marvel 18 or 55 or whatever number we're on now. I don't necessarily need that.
Yeah,
unless it's new and fresh, you know, something different.
They can still do Marvel. They just need to do something different with it. But yeah, very sadly, I approve, but I'm not happy that I'm agreeing.
Marvel could have been great, and at times
it was for a while.
Like, don't get me wrong, at times it still is. I think Infinity War and Endgame are two of the better movies of all the movies. Not just superhero movies, not just action movies, of all movies.
All movies.
I think Endgame and Infinity War and then Endgame are incredible. Incredible movies. But I don't need all the other stuff. I just don't. I don't need it. And James Palmer is tired of remakes. Yeah. The problem with remakes and sequels, and the reason we're going to keep getting them, and we're always going to get them, is because if I'm going to put $100 million or more into something, it has to make its money back. And I'm guaranteed to at least make its money back if it's IP that people recognize. If I take a chance on things people don't recognize, they may see it and it may work out, but it may not. And nobody in Hollywood is willing to take that risk anymore. And that's why we get remakes and sequels, is because they're spending so much money on movies that they can't afford to take the chance on something decent.
There's great stuff out there, though. I mean, just going back to the 80s, you know, growing up as a kid from the 80s, like there was stuff like that has not been done, especially live action, like Thundercats, the Silverhawks, Voltron, things like that.
But there is,
and
then
you have the
and then
technology to do it now.
They start working on it, Leo, and it I don't think they get it.
You have to do it right.
They're remaking one of my things that I grew up on was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Mm-hmm.
That is in production right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already, just this week, my sister-in-law sent me a message about this because she's also a big Masters of the Universe person. And they're talking about how it's completely different from anything we've had before He-Man. It's not like the 80s cartoon, and it's completely different. And they've cast Jared Leto to be Skeletor, which may be great, but it may also be terrible. And so they do things like that, and it's just like, don't you understand? If you're going to give me fan service, then just do the thing. Do the thing I want to see. Don't do different. Do the thing. If that's what you're going to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to do the thing, don't do it. Do something new and different and interesting. We're gonna need a big resurgence of independent film. And so guys like out there, unfortunately, the guys that are doing really good independent film, it all seems to be in the horror sort of genre. And so you've got Blumhouse and you've got some of those guys that are doing interesting and good movies that aren't built on other IP. And it's kind of all in that sort of realm now in the horror area, which is crazy because horror is the one that gave us endless sequels for like 20 years.
That's right.
Horror was the one that was like, we got a killer and people like them, make 18 movies about it. And and now it's the genre that actually does something interesting. So the Transformers animated movie that just came out, I have not seen.
Transformers 1.
Yeah. I heard about that. Did not go and see it, but I heard about it. Mark Yamaguchi, a challenge question. What is the most profitable remake between 2020 and 2023?
Remake. Trying to think of recent remakes. You got me there. I haven't seen any recent remakes.
I don't know. What would be the most profitable remake? And that's a very specific set of years, and there weren't a lot of movies coming out in those years because that was COVID. James Palmer guesses Little Mermaid. Not a bad guess. The Disney live action remakes could be where I would go for that, like Lion King or in fact, I might. That might be my guess is Lion King.
Oh, well, no, 2023. How long ago did Dune come out? Yeah, Dune.
Okay.
Dune. There you go. That would be my guess. Because Dune, the first one came out, had to be 2023 or prior. Yeah. Because two just came out last year, 2024.
Mark, we're gonna start wrapping it up. So you had mentioned Rocky 17.
17.
Is Creed? Would you consider Creed like a remake or reboot sort of thing? That might be up there. Creed was pretty popular.
Yeah.
The
first two Creed movies were not bad.
We got one more movie for you here in 2 weeks. We will be back on the 21st, and we will talk about one of my favorite movies. I realize Jason Spurgeon doesn't like it, and that's okay. We don't agree on a lot of things. I love it. It's really, really a solid movie. I have my issues with it. It's not a perfect movie. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, is because I think that there are things in it that are good, but I also think there are things in it that are misses. And I want to talk about those things. It's a movie that really gives you all it got. It's got. It's a great. I just flubbed a line. That's a line from the movie. Give me all you got. But I flubbed it, so that's my only extra hint that I'm giving out. Anything else about Major League or the movie to come, Leo?
No, I think we've covered it all.
All right. With all that being said, life's like a movie. Write your own ending. Keep believing. Keep pretending. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we will see you then. Till then, adios.
Thanks, guys.